Hey, everybody, how's it going? Dan here with Steven. I'll say it for you. Steven Schinder. And our guest for the first time, Trey Gunn, joins us to talk about a really cool project, and we'll dive into all kinds of other stuff as well. Steve, take it away.
Right, so we're talking about Trey Gunn's new album with David Forlano, Select Habits of Invertebrates. So this comes out tomorrow officially, doesn't it, Trey?
It does. Officially December 5th, correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, and first off, how did this collaboration come together?
Yeah, so it wasn't planned. I just met David. He lives here in Santa Fe, and there's a fairly strong like improv scene here, and David just invited me over to play, and it was really cool. It was really cool. It was very strange. And the next time I thought, well, I'll bring my little mixer board and we'll record. So kind of what we did, like the next 2 or 3 sessions, we just recorded everything we played. And I was like, man, I think there's a very strange record in here. And we kept playing, but we started working on deciding what parts of the improvisations that we wanted to piece together and shape them a little bit with basically just taking some stuff out of the mix and picking beginnings and endings. And then and we hadn't even played a show. So then we started playing a couple of shows. And now we have a really cool show coming this Saturday in Albuquerque, where we're going to be in quad surround sound surrounding the audience with all sorts of different sounds flying around the room. And a live video. We have a guy, John Mark Collins, who's going to be doing processing video in real time with us as we show. Yeah, the quad is really cool. I've been wanting to do quad. I'm a big quad fan. 5.1 and full surround I'm not so into, but full range quad is something I've just been dying to get my hands and ears on. So we're gonna do it this Saturday.
As soon as you mentioned that, and there's the cover of the album, folks.
Yeah.
As soon as you mentioned that, I reflected on listening to the tracks, that we've been able to listen to, and thought, oh my gosh, what a great idea. And then to add, I've been a video guy for like 25 years. So to add like a live real-time video creation around it sounds like a really wonderful multimedia presentation.
Yeah, and John Mark is really cool. We did our first gig was just like a 20-minute gig at a kind of a small festival, and he did live video for us. And he's like, do you guys, what do you want me to do? We're like, just do whatever you want. And he had like 8 video projections around the room controlling it live. And he even had some kind of system where people could get up and dance in this one spot, and he would capture their dancing and turn them into like a ball of fire or Godzilla.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't think any of that's happening, but we've made our own video as well. So he's going to take bits of our video and mix things. And the way it's going to work is we're going to be our stage is going to be kind of projected out into the room with the audience around us, 4 speakers in the corner. Then we have a big screen behind us. And then John Mark has made a bunch of little screens that are attached above us on all sides.
Wow.
2 feet to 5 feet. And there's going to be kind of video fragments that he's going to be manipulating in real time.
Well, a couple of things, Trey. Are you not turning people dancing into balls of fire in Godzilla either because the venue wouldn't allow it, or you couldn't get that on your insurance rider?
No, we wanted. We don't want people dancing.
There you go. Well, the other thing
we
is,
want to keep a crimson tradition going where everyone sits.
Yeah. Well, the description of the show, we've probably seen, played, or heard of this venue in Phoenix called the Celebrity Theater, and it's an in the round theater. I just saw Steve Hackett there 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've seen other great shows there. And the artist can choose whether or not they want the stage to revolve or not, or if they want the back part of the circular venue blocked off. It sounds like it'd be a great, and it's intimate. It seats, I think, between 27 and 3,200 people, something like that.
Right.
Every seat's a great seat. The stage is kind of low. There's the circular canopy, just like in the old days when Yes did in the round. It's already built into the build. Sounds like a great place for this show.
Well, to have a stage spinning is a very complicated operation.
Yeah.
With the,
and you can do it without it. You can just have the stage stationary like a lot of artists do there. It's really neat. But that sounds great. And it sounds like the album came together, the music came together very organically.
Yeah. It kind of caught us by surprise. And so, and we record all of our rehearsals and all of our shows. So I got a lot of backlog to go through as well, to release some live stuff.
That's great. That's awesome.
Are there any venues that you have in mind for those potential future live releases, like venues or some of those were recorded?
We're just kind of slowly piecing together kind of gigs in the area. We can't, there aren't many,
right?
But there are, and the quad thing was an opportunity that came up, because we know this guy down in Albuquerque with Amped Productions, and he said, let's do more of an event than just a show. You can play clubs and stuff, but it's and we will, and we have some more. There's a jazz club in town that we play in, and it's cool. But the full multimedia thing is a big production. And there's a lot more people involved, a lot more complicated. Yeah.
Sounds exciting. Might there be some sort of video product of one of these shows made and put out officially at some point?
Yeah, we're going to do a multi-camera shoot of this show, and we'll see what we get. And yeah.
That's great.
I know the audio is awesome because we record right through our digital mixing system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the studio facility yet for mixing Atmos and surround, but I will within a year or so.
Great. Is that what some of the building is that's going on that you mentioned before we went live?
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I really like the tracks on here. I'll read them real quick in a moment. We got, well, first off, I want to say I really like the mysterious sounding vibe of these tracks. Would you say that music says something even when it doesn't have lyrics?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's not the same kind of language as lyrics or spoken word, which there's some some on the record, and we have a lot of spoken word in the show. I've made that's one of the quad features we have, with different voices coming out of all the different speakers in strange places.
Wow.
Yeah, and I agree that it's more I mean, that's kind of a deep question you're asking, and we're not doing a whole a music course on it, but
right.
There's the vibe of the piece, and then there's what I look at is the how musicians make their phrases, and that's where a lot of the meaning comes from, and really I think what makes different musicians unique is how they, we're all using the same 12 notes, so it's really how you shape them. If you use all 12 of them at once, then it's kind of like using all the colors in the crayon box at once. But if you use a little here, and then you take a space, then you do a little here, and then a space, and for me, that's where kind of the meaning of the different pieces come from, and how the shapes are made, and how the phrases are made, and what each of them, kind of the tool set that it comes from.
Yeah, the musical storytelling of it all.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the tracks are Select Habits of Invertebrates, Mono No Waves, Litigation of the Monkey, a Simulacra, The Perfect Matchstick, Paper Then Flavor, and The Winds That Ended History. How do you guys come up with these track titles?
We sat down and brainstormed listening to the stuff. You know, sometimes it's cool to start with a title. Sometimes it's cool to name kind of an improv or an idea right away. And then sometimes you have to sit with the material for a while. And for this, we because I spent so much time going back to the mixes and trying to adjust levels and EQ to make the right things fit together. It took us a while, so we spent a lot of time listening. And then we just sat down and brainstormed the titles.
That's great. And you mentioned that there's a backlog of material. Will that see the light of day, and might this collaboration with David and you also continue beyond that?
That's our plan. I mean, what's interesting about improvisation is that it's super exciting when you do it, and then it's exciting. It's usually exciting when you first listen to it, and then after a while you kind of sit with it and it's like, this one's not as good as that one actually, and so let me figure out how to do this. So it's not.
Oh, I thought you were pausing, but you froze. Hopefully the signal will kick right back in, but for us, you're frozen.
Yeah, I thought it was me on my end.
No, I thought he paused to think for a moment. Hopefully you can still see us, Trey. But it did pause. If it continues, you may want to log out and just log right back in, and Steve and I will chat about what we've listened to. But for us, you're frozen right now. And folks watching on Yesshift and Drum Talk TV live on both channels, brands, Facebook pages, and YouTube channels, chime in with your favorite work by Trey, if you're familiar with his other work as well, and David for that matter too, David Forlano. But this music, you know, I sometimes hesitate to describe it because I never want to offend the artist. Like, that's not what we intended. And we saw Trey there for a moment. I'm sure he'll be right back. But it is, and here's Trey, and we're back. Whoop, there we go. Stephen and I both pressed the button at the same time. Yeah, you paused for a moment there, and well, I thought you paused and then you were frozen, but you're back.
Yeah, everybody disappeared for me for a second.
Sorry about that. Do you remember where you left off?
I think I was saying something about how mixing the live stuff is
yeah.
It's much more involved than you would think, especially like when we do our live show, we have like 14 channels of stuff going in. So yes, we will do more. We have an older live show from Albuquerque we're putting together, and some more stuff from Santa Fe, and we're going to keep spilling out stuff. And weirdly, as much as these are improvs, we've actually kind of learned some of the vibes of them, and we do kind of a version of some of these pieces live.
Neat.
Which is cool.
Yeah, very much so. How would you describe the music that people could expect who haven't heard any of it yet from the samples online?
Well, mostly I try to avoid that.
Okay.
Right. It is hard to put into words. Yeah.
Yeah, which is exactly what I love is, you know, when you're doing a genre music, your kind of success rate is how well you hit that genre. And it's just not what I'm into.
And people stereotype too.
Yeah. And I'm looking for the weird stuff in the cracks, but it's definitely electronic music, even though my instrument it's electric, but it is strings. I'm touching strings. And actually in the show on Saturday, David's going to be playing live sax, and there's some sax and flutes and bells and stuff on the recording. But it sounds like electronic music, and some of it's pretty groovy, some of it's kind of dark ambient.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because Trey, sometimes when people automatically hear electronic music, they think of EDM. You know, like it's automatic.
We don't have any of that. There's none. There's none of that.
There's no at all.
And we like kind of the glitched up beats that kind of sound like beats, but they're more disturbed and irregular. And we like tempo changes that the EDM doesn't change tempos.
Right.
We'll just change tempo on the fly. Yeah.
I mentioned seeing Steve Hackett recently, and the first bit of sound I heard when I started listening to this new album was it reminded me of his version of Waiting Room Only from his Genesis Revisited album, which was from like 2008 or something like that, maybe even earlier. Yeah, it was earlier, but it has that almost like you can't describe it sort of vibe, you know.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that's the first thing I thought of that was remotely related to anything I've heard remotely, like
Well,
what
I
you
haven't,
David have
heard
done.
that record yet, but I'm a big Steve fan, and this project I had, the security project with Jerry Murata, that we were doing Gabriel stuff. Our guitar player Michael Kotze is a huge and started playing guitar because of Steve Hackett.
Oh,
So
wow.
we went to go see him in Seattle, maybe right when he was starting to do the Genesis Revisited, and it was great. And Steve was so understated and cool on stage,
Oh, yeah, and you could
his
see he's
stature.
so mild-mannered he is, yet having so much fun, you know? It's like a quiet elation sort
Yeah,
of vibe.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, yesterday, on Drum Talk TV, I had, Nick DiVirgilio on, who was his drummer for this tour that just finished, and Nick just did a fantastic job. Saw them at that theater that I mentioned,
Right.
and he talked a lot about working with Steve, and that Steve's always very open and willing to talk about those older Genesis years that he was part of and things like that. So that's really neat. Who are some of your early influences and how did you get into music? Let's dive way back into your story there.
Yeah, I got into music before I had influences. I mean, I started playing, I had an urge to play piano when I was like 6,
Nice.
and obviously heard music before that. So I kind of got introduced to a lot of the old school Western classical composers, along with like listening to Beatles and Cat Stevens on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And but then when I kind of really got into playing bass and guitar, I grew up in South Texas, so it was kind of a hard rock scene. Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Blue Oyster Cult. That kind of stuff early on, but along with Beatles and more poppier stuff. And then when I really got serious, I was kind of divided between like Mahavishnu, Crimson, Iggy Pop.
Ooh.
I grew up with old country western records too. My grandfather used to listen to Hank and Willie on all the time. So kind of all sorts of stuff, which nowadays is no big deal, but at the time it was pretty unusual to be playing in punk bands and trying to figure out what McLaughlin's doing on the Emeralds of the Vision Beyond and stuff like that.
And that is also when you mention those country artists, in my impression, my mind is when country music was indeed a totally separate genre, as opposed to now it's more related to the lyrics, and it's like pop rock with a bit of twang and some steel guitar.
Right.
I'm not offending anybody, but
well, I can go further than that. I can offend, and I can't remember who said this, but it's not me. Really cool songwriter. New country music is hip hop for people who are afraid of black people.
My wife's black. I can't wait to tell her that one. That's hilarious.
It's kind of true. It's kind of true.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting spin. If you take out the lyrics, most of it sounds like hip hop, pop rock. Yeah.
It kind of went rock, and then they kind of took that swing from kind of rap hip hop, and there's an old tradition of the country western storytelling that goes on and on, but now they just cram the words together.
Yeah. When I think back at the Gene Autry and even Johnny Cash, to a degree and stuff like that, it's a different genre now. R&B, I feel the same way. R&B is not rhythm and blues anymore, and it hasn't been since, I don't know, the 80s or the late 70s even. It's just a whole different thing.
Yeah.
To me, Stevie Wonder is R&B.
Yeah, sure.
Not John Legend or, who I like, but I just don't know. It's weird how things evolve and morph, and yet the names don't change.
The names don't, exactly.
Can we just add some new genre names?
Well, and that's probably because of the industry, because they need to market stuff. You know, if we weren't marketing, everybody would be in the cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going back a few decades, you were in King Crimson from the mid 90s to the 2000s, and Bill Bruford was still in the band on a couple of those earlier outings, Vroom and Thrack. And I'm sure our audience would like to know, what was it like working with him?
So I had not met Bill before our first rehearsal. And actually, had I met Tony? I'd maybe met Tony because I'd been doing a couple of records in Woodstock where Tony lived, and I was friends with Jerry Murata, who plays with Tony all the time. I hadn't met Adrian or Bill until our first rehearsals, and actually Bill hadn't even met Pat until the first rehearsal.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love Bill. He's like not only cool to play with, but he's just a very funny, dry-witted Brit. And in fact, you know, he basically retired, but then Pat and I were doing a show with one of our projects, Tuner, with Marcus Reuter in Poland last month, in October. And it's a drum festival that we played many times. And they said, "Oh, you're going to double bill with Bill." We're like, "What? Bill's coming out of retirement." So,
yeah, he's in that trio.
Yeah, so we played a show with the trio in October, and it was really great, really great. The guitar player
to see it back out.
was really cool, and the bass player was really cool, and the room just ate it up. They couldn't get off the stage. They kept on doing encore after encore, and he's just playing a little jazz kit.
Yeah, 4-piece kit.
It's really cool.
Yeah, he's literally one of the most legendary living drummers right now.
Yeah. And he still feels very young.
That's great. That's so good to hear. What were your King Crimson days like?
Well, it was it was probably the most, I don't know, I guess I'll use the word productive period of Crimson. Like during that 10 years, there was more music written, more records released, more live shows than any other period. And it went through a lot of different phases with the 6-piece for a couple of records and many world tours. And then we broke up into these small improv groups, which is very akin to what David Forlano and I are doing now, of which I was involved in all of them over the course of several years. So that was a very different experience of no formality in the music at all.
Interesting.
Back into writing again, and then the 4-piece Crimson with Robert and Adrian and Pat and myself for 2 more studio records and a lot of touring and touring in really cool places that you wouldn't normally go. Actually, the double trio Crimson, we got to go to Eastern Europe, and then the Berlin Wall had just fallen, and the Polish Communist Party fell, Czech fell. So we got to go to a lot of those countries where, for the first time, Crimson ever got to go there.
What was the reception like?
It was insane. It was crazy. I mean, awesome. we can't even relate really, because when we played in Prague or when we played in Warsaw, those Crimson records were illegal to own.
Yeah,
it was contraband.
They still are in some United States, actually.
And so it was it was like a cultural event. We went into Moscow, we went into Russia, played Moscow and St. Petersburg, and it was like a national event. And that was super cool. And I love it over there. And we've been back. I mean, I've been to Russia 10 times, and for some reason, Poland is really into what we do, and we go there. I've been there every year for the last 3 or 4 years.
Wow, that's great.
So it's really cool, and it's a little bit like South America and Mexico. The music means so much to people.
Yeah.
Not that it doesn't to us, but man, when you go to one of those places where it really, really means something.
Yeah, Brazil, it's literally, especially the percussion, it's part of the culture.
Yeah.
West Africa, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
What was some big I'm assuming there were there, and if so, what were some of the big takeaways you got as a musician and a composer working with King Crimson and the guys in the band like Adrian, Robert, of course, and Tony and Bill?
Yeah, so the process with Crimson is pretty, I don't want to use the word laborious, but it's very involved and it takes a lot of work. You generally can't, it's very different than other projects. You can't really bring in, it's pretty rare for somebody to bring in an idea and have it actually work. So we're kind of, Robert brings in some ideas, but they're usually in a pretty raw form and we have to play them. So there's not really, it's not like somebody bringing in a song or like, even Adrian couldn't really bring in a song. It just didn't ever work. He kind of had to make it, and we had to piece together how the rhythm section is going to work and how the chords are going to work for everybody in the room.
Interesting.
So actually the 6-piece Crimson was a little bit quicker in working. Robert and I and Jerry Murata, and then a little bit with Tony as well, had been playing around with some of these ideas for a long time until they finally fell into place. With the 4-piece Crimson, the last one I was involved with, we spent a lot of time writing together and just writing, kind of playing with kind of raw ideas and raw building blocks and figuring out like how to build them together and how to end up with level, how you don't just sit down and write a piece like Level 5 or the construction of light. You have to try a lot of different ideas and see, does the key change does the key need to move here? Does the rhythm need to change? What kind of break? I don't relish the idea of like an old school performer writing an orchestral piece because it's an insane amount of work, but you're just dealing with yourself, and orchestra is kind of it's kind of a known entity and it does these certain things. With Crimson, you don't know what the entity is. Everybody's got weird sounds. Anybody can play any kind of rhythm, or there's like so much capacity, but you have to find what fits those particular people at that time. So it's a slow process.
But it's really neat and refreshing to hear how much latitude you guys all had together.
Yeah.
A lot of people have the impression that Robert Fripp has these ideas and he just bosses everybody into place and then we get that music, but that's not at all how it is. Right?
No, he's I've never seen him ever tell anyone what to play.
Right.
Basically it's more like, this is what I'm doing. What are you going to do?
I love that. Yeah.
And you got to figure it out. It's a big puzzle, to figure out what's going to work. And Pat and I were always juggling ideas as a rhythm section. With the 4-piece, sometimes we would, on a couple occasions with the last record, the Power to Believe record, we had the whole song written, got into the studio, and then Pat and I decided what we were doing wasn't working. So we would just rewrite the whole rhythm section. The guitar parts never changed. And we would do that sometimes live too. Like we would mutate the parts live on several pieces, like now we're gonna change the time signature here, or we're gonna do a bunch of hits now that we weren't doing before. And that was one of the cool things about playing live. Like you do let's say an 8-week tour. By week 3, Pat and I are already mutating some of the ideas, and by the time you get to the end, it's still the same piece. It's the same piece, but there's different ways of playing it.
Yeah, that's great. Keeps it fresh.
Yeah,
and refreshing for you guys.
Yeah. So when working within King Crimson, was there ever this frame of mind of I should play something that feels like it's somewhat King Crimson-esque, or was it basically like I'm gonna be me and we'll see if it meshes with everyone else in the group and that'll be King Crimson now?
Yeah, so I never heard King Crimson before the Discipline record.
Oh wow.
At the time, I had to go back. In fact, when we had our first rehearsal and Tony had suggested that we do a version of Larks 2, I'd never heard it.
Really?
So
It's amazing.
you know, and so I just, you know, Pat, and in fact, when we got to the rehearsals, Pat knew it better than even the guys who had played it because he'd like studied it up.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that means to be like King Crimson. You know, I know the kind of discipline era, the approach, the guitar playing approach. And I guess Tony has an approach, but no, for me at least, it was just responding to what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're going to make something heavy. So okay, so let's find a heavy way to do it. We're going to make something light and moody. Okay, let's see what how I would contribute to that and see what works.
That's great.
It's definitely evolved over the years. So for me, like my perception of it is King Crimson is the energy of collaboration between all these individuals, these musicians, and seeing how it all combines and comes together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think Bruford describes it almost the best, where people have this idea of Robert as being dictatorial. Maybe that's the word. But Bill says Bill describes it as it's like Miles Davis. He just puts the right people in the room and doesn't offer anything.
Oh, that's so eloquent. You know? Yeah.
Not that there's no guidance, but basically you pick the people and let them play.
Yeah. That's how I think really any team with any company in any industry works best too.
But it is labor intensive. It's you know, especially when people are all over the planet, you've got to get everyone together.
Right.
And kind of, I think the way we kind of jump started the band, the first time the six of us played together, we had the recording system set up, and that's we made the Vroom record. We had a 2-week period, and we met, we played, we worked on material, we recorded, and then you know, then we just went.
How did you get connected into that whole world anyway? Like, did you get a call or were you introduced?
No, I've known Robert since '85 when he first gave some guitar lessons. I went and met him. And I studied guitar with him for a couple of years, and then he asked me to join a band. Actually, he asked me to join a band with his wife, Toya, playing the stick, which I'd never played before. And so we'd been working together let's say 7 or 8 years before the Crimson Project. Actually, almost 10 years. Different things, you know. I did a Brian Eno session record with him, and we had this project with David Sylvian for several years, where we played as a trio with David, and then we made a record with Jerry Murata, and then did a world tour with David and Robert. So I was not, and because we'd worked together so much, I knew when we would be throwing musical ideas around, and I could pretty much sense, like, this particular musical idea, this is a Crimson idea. It's got a Crimson flavor. So it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a total surprise when he said he was thinking about the project and, you know, wanted me involved.
Great. And you got this exciting new record coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is December 5th, if anybody's watching this on an archive. What else do you have going on? Not to take away from that, but what else is on your radar or your roadmap?
So the record comes out on my label, 7D Media, which is getting close to being around for 20 years. We have a lot of different projects.
Great.
Oh, wow.
We have several projects with this band Tuner that I play with Pat Nastellato. We've got Deep Energy Orchestra. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, my partner AJ lives out in Oakland. He's flying out for the show on Saturday, and we're going to meet. We put out, I don't know, 12 to 20 records a year.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. And not all of them I play on, but I play on quite a few different ones. Yeah. And actually, the newest record, my buddy Jason Everett, the Deep Energy Orchestra. I don't know if you've.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, we got to get you guys the new record, because Jason plays fretless bass. Gary Husband's on it. Adam Holdsman from Steve Wilson's band. Joe Deninson, who plays violin with Kansas, is on it. Don Gunn, not related, mixed it and plays drums on it. All these Indian guys play on it. Selva, who plays Conjura with McLaughlin and Shakti, he's on it.
Oh, we'd
So
love to hear this.
it's
Yeah.
an Indian prog fusion record, and that comes out on our label. Man, maybe it just came out, or maybe it's coming out tomorrow as well. I don't remember.
Okay, we'd love to check that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds interesting. Is all the music that you put out on your label somewhat in the same universe genre-wise?
Yeah, yeah. We try to pick stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else, but is really good.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's a lot of instrumental music. There's some vocal stuff, and then we also distribute this very electronic music label from England called Din Records with the Ian Body, and it's not EDM electric. It's more like modular synths, and it puts out a record every month. So that's a big part of our work, and it's kind of there's a little bit of a crossover with Marcus Reuter and Robert Rich. I don't know if you know this guitar player.
No, I don't.
Kind of ambient experimental mixed with modular synth kind of stuff.
Great. For everybody watching, there's so much amazing music out there that's out of the mainstream and that's not on your favorite FM station. It's so worth, and that's why we love having people like you on, Trey. It's so worth just stepping out of the box and getting turned on to whole other worlds of music. There's just so much out there, and thanks to the internet, we can access it and find artists that are doing things that are different.
Yeah. And the artists can find you.
Right.
Otherwise they wouldn't be able to make it.
Right. Yeah. But thanks to your label, and labels like yours that do put stuff out that isn't, just the same old stuff that everyone else has been doing for years or putting out,
Yeah.
Not that all that's bad or that any of it is, it's all subjective, but to find new stuff is always so exciting. Steve turned me on to something a few years ago. He was living in Bakersfield, California at the time. We were living here. So we drove to Bakersfield, spent the night. Then we drove to Oregon to have Thanksgiving with my daughter, one of my daughters and her family. And he put on Chromatics. And I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that was really my first introduction to something that had what I would consider electronic music folded into it. And we got home from that trip, and on this laptop to my side that is usually playing music, if I don't need my brain or my ears too much to work, I'm listening to their vinyl rips. I just love their music. And then we have a son-in-law who creates a lot of lo-fi stuff that we stay at their house, one of our daughters and son, when we go out to Vegas quite frequently. And I got turned on to that. So it's fun, someone who was into the same stuff for like 50 years. I can name the 10 bands I've been listening to exclusively for 50 years. And then to discover new stuff, it helps to have an open mind, right?
Yeah, it does. In fact, it's funny what you say about the lo-fi and the electronic stuff. I'm not a musician who goes to the NAMM show. You guys know what the NAMM show is?
Oh yeah, we covered.
Yeah, we've been there.
10 years.
I don't go every year. Like maybe I've only been like 4 or 5 times in my life. The last time I went, all the guitar stuff and all the drum stuff was so boring. What was really exciting was the modular synth area.
Oh, yeah.
And there were a lot of like 20-year-old kids in there with the mini modular synths. And there was this buzz in that area that none of the guitar pedal amp places had. They great stuff, but it's just kind of, what it is. Whereas this is weird controllers and weird stuff and people making weird, glitchy, strange things.
That's neat. That shows such an evolution in music and gear and influence and everything, which I think is so important.
Yeah.
Drum Talk TV, or the big brand, will be 13 years old in January. And started it January 7th of 2013 and covered that NAMM show 2 weeks later. And then the following 9 years. And I don't think you'll cover it again. And I don't mind saying that publicly, folks, because it's just different now.
Yeah, something changed the last 2 years, right?
Yeah, and it's a public thing now, and that's not what the NAMM show was for. But I always liked going to it. But to your point, Trey, you're right that it's like what drums are, what guitars are. There wasn't a ton of like new innovation and things like that. There was in lighting, there was in DJ gear, there wasn't, like you're saying, modular synths and some recording, stuff, software, things like that.
Or like digital mixing systems.
Yeah.
Or not the inherently sexy stuff, the very
Right.
technical stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It was neat to see new drum finishes and, some different things, but like you said, you put it very well. We know what's there. The guitar booths and the bass booths and yeah.
And actually nowadays we expect all that shit to be immaculately amazing.
Right.
Because it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It sets, new standards, and then we have expectations, and then it's living up to those expectations.
Right.
And I think with products and gear, like we're talking about, it's the same as music. I forgot who said it. If it was Clint Eastwood, may have said this, and it relates to musicians. And I think what we're talking about as well is the hardest thing to follow is your own act. Once you have a certain level of success, you set these expectations. Okay, now what? Now what's she going to do? Now what are they going to make? Now what's he going to do? And that's kind of, I think, where that evolution and advances come from in gear and methods and things like that.
Yeah. And people still complain that their gear is. I was like, dude, you need to go on the road with a 20 space rack that hardly does what your little pedal does.
Right.
Carry that sucker around and feel inadequate.
Exactly. Steve, do you have any other questions before I ask the last magical question?
Oh.
I mean, I actually was gonna ask I was thinking of asking, I think, what you're gonna ask.
Okay, then you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the Trey Gunn fun fact segment. So when you're not working on music, what do you like to do for fun, Trey?
Two things. I'm really into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I practice many hours a week.
Wow.
I started I started practicing Aikido about 20 years ago, and then 12 years ago I moved over to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and now I do that, and I even teach the beginners class here at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Santa Fe. And that's a huge part of when I'm not on the instrument. That's what I'm thinking about.
What's that? Before you go on to the next thing, what has that done for your body and mind, Trey?
Well, I started with Aikido because I was having so many issues with my hands and elbow, partly to do with how my instrument is played.
Yeah.
And actually now I play it on my lap because of that. And also just carrying three 70-pound cases around the planet. Yeah. I started having problems, and my acupuncturist said, you might go down to this Aikido dojo, and they do a lot of wrist stuff. And he was right. And like after 6 months, I have never had any problems. So there's that, but also just the discipline of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, even though it is wrestling and there's a lot of strong people, it's based on technique overpassing strength. Like you learn how to use leverage and technical facility so that you can win over the bigger, stronger, and in my case, younger guys.
That's awesome. And then what's your other jam outside of music and jiu-jitsu? Oh, magic tricks or card games?
Yeah. Well, both. Card manipulation. And it's a similar thing. I got into it. I mean, I've always been into magic in a certain way, but to work my hands, to get my hands to do different stuff than they're used to doing. And I practice just shuffling and different sleights with both hands.
Very interesting.
And it's kind of my triple discipline: the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Jiu-Jitsu, the cards, and then the music kind of covers everything I need for now.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for taking time with us. We're excited about this new album. Yeah, we'd love to hear that other stuff. Tell people how they can get a hold of you or find all these things that you're doing.
Yeah, so 70media.com has everything. We have a 70 Media Bandcamp page with all of our artists, and it's pretty crazy how many artists.
And it's the digit 7, not the word, correct?
Digit 7D.
Okay.
Media, 7D Media. And on Bandcamp, and then streaming and my sites, and
Great. That's awesome. Hang on the line with Steve and I just for a moment after we say goodbye to the audience. And audience, thanks so much for following, whether you're watching on Drum Talk TV or Yesshift. Steve, how can they write us love letters or hate mail or give us ideas?
Email us yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us at Yesshift on Facebook and YouTube, and search Yesshift in a podcast app.
There you go. Thanks, everybody. And thanks again, Trey.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, folks.